Hi, my name is Bryn.
And I'm Jana.
Today we're going to talk to you about diversity and specifically what that looks like to have cultural awareness. Because in order to have a classroom that's inclusive, it has to value its diversity. So culture can be defined through a lot of different things. Some of them, which you probably already know, are language, ethnicity, tradition, or geography. And so as teachers, it's our job to not only know the importance of inclusion because of cultural differences, but also know what it looks like to put that into practice in our classrooms.
So the first thing that we are going to do is we gave you guys a worksheet. The point of this worksheet for the students that are coming to this is that we are going to explain that the inside circle is things that cannot be changed. They can't do anything about these. Like you have your gender, you have your age, and then the stuff on the outside circle is more changeable. It's up for decision. So these things are the things that define them as individuals. So we're going to ask them to put 3 Post-it notes onto the things that they think are the most important. And then from there, we're going to move on and just have them set it aside for later, because later we're going to explain the importance of these 3 Post-it notes.
So this graph here shows the growing diversity of U.S. student population. And so it talks about low socioeconomic status, English language learners, and also students with disabilities. And we can see that from the 1970s to 2014, it's grown drastically, and it's even grown since then. And so in order to develop cultural competence and awareness, we need to have conversations like this, which is the point of why you're all here, so that we can have the knowledge that we need in order to put it into practice and let that awareness be something that's very visible in the classroom, and that will eventually change our attitudes in how we react to things and how we interact with our students. So one of the things we talked about is diversity in language. 1 out of 5 students speaks a language that is different than English, and 1 out of 10 speaks Spanish as their first language. And so this is a really big deal for all of us as future teachers, because if we walk into a classroom and we have students that don't speak the language that we speak, that makes a difference in every single aspect of the education system for that student. And so this is something that we need to be aware of in order to help them be able to understand what we're teaching as well as interact with their peers. Also, this is the case for students in terms of race and ethnicity. And so this graph shows the fall of 2003, 2013, and then it projects into 2025 what they think will be race and ethnicity in the classroom. And so we can see that for white students, it's decreasing. For African American students, it's staying relatively in the same range. And then Hispanic students, it's increasing. Asian and Pacific Islander is increasing. American Indian and Alaska Native is staying about the same. But then students with 2 or more races is increasing. And so this shows pretty specifically that we have students who are not just one race or ethnicity, and that's something that we need to be aware of in our teaching.
And additionally to this, the reason why there are 2 more races and the reason why the white race is also going down is because of this combination of races. And I think that that's important. That's just as much as diversity as it would be to be a Black or Hispanic student. But also culturally, Hispanic students are going up because of immigration, but also because of different things that are happening in our political culture as well. So being aware of those things is very important, as well as understanding the growth of race in itself. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to bring in the worksheet again. And at this point, because we've talked about the statistics of these other language and race diversities, we're going to ask the students to one by one take off Post-it notes of the things that they think are least important that they posted earlier. So for example, if a student put that their kind of the third most important thing to them would be their age, then they would remove the identity based on their age. And then we would ask them to do another, and that could be their gender. And so they would remove the identity that was associated with gender, and then they would be left with only one thing that defined their facet of identity. And so the point of this is because we want students to understand that if we just look at our own students as teachers, if we look at these students through just one lens, then we're really robbing them of their complete and robust identity. And so I think that it'll be a really good opportunity for students that are attending this event to see that you cannot really funnel another student or another person into just one identity and one description of their identity. So it's very important for them to understand that they need to look at all facets instead of just one. So next we're going to be talking about equity versus equality, and that's pulling into what we can do as teachers to become more aware of these students with diversity. So we're going to ask the students what they think the difference between equity and equality is, because these words are so similar, but they mean such different things. So then we're going to pull up this picture, which is equity versus equality. Obviously, the students are the people on the left are not getting the full experience, and that's through equality, but through equity, giving everybody an equal opportunity and a fair chance to experience the same event, but keeping in mind the difference between each person individually. So that's going to be kind of an exercise for them to see how they need to look at their students, rather than just seeing, oh, this student has this, so I need to give every student the same chance to be on the same level. Looking at each student individually and saying, this is their background, this is who they are, so I need to apply my teaching to this person specifically.
So then we're going to go into the cultural awareness iceberg. The students will have a piece of paper and they'll be able to get together and answer the question, what are some categories that you think of within the realm of diversity? And so they'll put different words down. And after they're done with that, we'll go over it and talk about these things. And chances are the majority of the things that they put down are categories that are visible, that you can see easily. And so then we're going to show this picture of the iceberg and talk about that while everything that they wrote down is completely accurate and true, there's also so much more below the surface of what we can see that plays into our diverse students. And so when we consider how to teach students who are diverse, or just students in general, we need to be aware of not just the things that we can see, but also the things that we can't see.
Next, we're going to be talking about bullying, like teachers, how teachers can be aware with bullying. And so we're going to show this graph, which is a pie chart of just the different percentages of bullying that occurs in a regular school. And this is just for all students. This isn't specifically for diverse students, but I hope that the people that are attending this event will see that there is such huge portions of bullying that occurs regardless of who you are, but even more so with diverse students, because they're even more different on top of that, but they're also they're misunderstood. And so I think that with bullying, it's very important for us as teachers to really look at the student and know them from the beginning of the year. And that's difficult. We know that it's hard to walk into the classroom and automatically know your students, but that's why we have to make the big effort to know our students individually and know what they need, and also the things that they're scared of. So that kind of goes on to our next slide.
So it takes a lot of work to, like Jana was saying, to understand the specific fears and needs that students will come in with. But one thing that most students probably deal with is the fear of having to build relationships outside of their realm of comfortability. And that can be in the category of race or gender, or language, or so many different things that we've talked about today. But the fact of the matter is that students need to be able to feel comfortable with interacting with students who are not like them. And so that's something that the teacher needs to be responsible for facilitating. And then something else is the lack of knowledge of social practices. So an example of this is if a student comes from a culture where looking someone in the eyes is disrespectful, but they come into an American classroom where it shows respect to look at someone in the eyes, that's